Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about intergenerational trauma, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. This is a thinker, and thankfully, I have Sherry here who's going to help me think about this in another way, since this is something that he's even exploring deeper in within himself. So, if he's able to do this and go deeper within himself, then why can't the rest of the world? Why can't we do this? So let's think about this. Thank you so much, Sheridan, for coming on my show again. So let's just dive right in. What does intergenerational trauma, what does that make you think about?
Like up here in Canada, it's been a big topic of conversation. I don't know if you're familiar with how the what Americans call the Native American Indian. They were treated up here in Canada. Up here, we refer to them as First Nations or a thousand different terms depending on which who feels what's right. But um, in Canada, the various nations, tribes, whatever you going to call them, they were never defeated in battle. They were never like land wasn't taken by force. They weren't. There was never a war. It was done by trickery and deceit and betrayal through falsifying treaties and then not following through on them. And then they were placed on reserves called reservations down in America, right? But then about 200 years ago, um, probably to be fair, with the very best of intentions, the government at the time uh, decided that the best way to help them pesky Indians get all civilized would be to force their children to be taken away and placed in schools where they would live and be not allowed to speak to their parents, speak their own language, learn their own customs. And when
Correct.
that happened, these children were, for the most part, largely horrifically abused in every way possible, and that was
Right.
ignored. And that went on for about 200 years, 150 years or so. So we refer to that as intergenerational trauma up here quite a bit, and it is.
Yeah.
Um, I'm indigenous. My ancestry is mixed, as is everyone, really. Let's be honest. But so that's what we think about up here in Canada. That's what it is, right? But that's not even the tip of the iceberg. That's the biggest, broadest example. Yes, these children were abused, traumatized. Then grew up, although not psychologically, because when we get traumatized, generally speaking, we kind of stay emotionally at the age we were traumatized at, which is
Yeah.
why there's so many, middle-aged adolescents running around. Um,
That's the truth.
but then they pass that trauma. Then because they grew up traumatized, they traumatize their children,
Exactly.
right? And then so on and so on and so on. Like if you think about um, um like families of criminals in lower income areas, right?
Uh-huh.
The inner city and stuff.
Yes.
Why does that happen? In large part because of the environment, right? But why doesn't the environment change? Because this is what everybody knows and grows up with and teaches the next generation, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
for me specifically, and of course there's always outliers. There's good human beings everywhere, and every human being has some good in them, sure. Not
Right.
every, but most. I'm gonna say the overwhelming majority. I've seen real evil when I worked in the jails. I know what real evil is, and it is out there. Like, and I know when I see it because it scares me.
Me
Guns
too.
don't scare me. Knives don't scare me.
People.
Um, yeah, but that blank, like when there's nothing in here,
Oh, yeah.
that scares the hell out of me, right? That's evil.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those eyes, I can read eyes, and man, when I can read somebody's eyes and it says like danger, like you know what I mean, like
Yeah,
reckless, like people don't realize that reckless people they have nothing to lose. You know what I mean? And when you have nothing to lose, anyone can be a victim. Anyone's your victim. Anyone is your stepping stool to get to where you need to be. And people don't realize that that's a type of trauma that is hard to recover from because it's like where do you even begin with that? You know what I mean? It's a
yeah,
hard stop. And I'm glad that you talked about how it's just a cycle. You know what I mean? And it's a cycle and it's repetitive because they end up teaching the next generation of the trauma that they had and they repeat it on and leave it going. And sometimes, like you said, it's not intentional. But I think it comes down to a point when you realize what's coming from generational trauma and that's been real trauma versus what's been generational bad habits and bad decisions. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we allow ourselves to say it's trauma, but in actuality, if you own up to your actions, you can then say, okay, they're just bad decisions that are bad habits that I kept on doing over and over again because at the moment I thought it was giving me the stimulation that I needed. But in actuality, looking back, I'm realized, oh, that was my own demise. And I think people don't realize that their actions can be their own demise. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have learned that um, there's a difference between my fault and my responsibility,
That's very
right?
true.
Um, most of the things that have happened in my life aren't actually my fault,
Hmm.
whether I've harmed somebody or not. Very rarely is that my fault. It has at times, but everything in my life is my responsibility. Everything
Correct.
is in my life. My thoughts are my responsibility. If they're unhealthy, it's my responsibility to change them. My
Right.
behavior is my responsibility. Absolutely. If I'm not
Right.
behaving as the person I want to be, if I'm not behaving as the man I want my sons to become, then it's my responsibility to change, right? If
Absolutely.
somebody else is doing something and it affects me in a certain way, it is still my responsibility. Check myself, moderate my behavior, make a conscious choice. And if I had to
Hmm.
sit all the way through a powerful emotion first, right? Like you didn't make like no one makes you angry. They do a thing, and maybe they're being deliberately a dick or whatever, but they're just doing a thing.
Yeah.
How you react is how you react. How you feel is how you feel, and it's valid,
Hmm.
probably, right? But but your feelings are not your thoughts. Your opinions are not facts, and your behavior is your responsibility. So before you act,
Absolutely.
it's our responsibility to figure out if what I'm doing, what I want to do next, is an appropriate thing. Is this behavior okay? Should I do this thing? Right? Should I punch this guy in the throat and watch him choke? Probably not. Very
Exactly.
rarely is that the appropriate response.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Right?
recommend that. Yeah. As all the
Right?
options for advice, I wouldn't recommend that one as the first one. So
Right?
I
Like this.
guess I want to know, because I know we kind of tapped on it before we started the recording. I want to know what are all of like the healing ways or the ways that you tapped into finding out your generational trauma.
Oh boy.
I know. Don
Um.
don don.
Right. I have tried many different modalities over the years. Of course, I have a regular therapist.
Okay.
That's changed over the years. I started with one, and then for insurance purposes, I had to switch, which was bollocks. However, the new one I have, we've got a great relationship now, so that's great. I've done some very specialized group therapy with
Okay.
some groups here in Canada that deal with first responders and veterans. And part of that is something called a therapeutic enactment, where through the use of body movement and almost like self hypnosis, you can actually put yourself back in a place and time to relive it in a way, but
Okay.
to achieve the end state that will heal the harm done.
Basically
Right?
to gain clarity.
Yeah. Right. So,
Okay.
um, for me, for example, my first wife, I don't know if you remember, my first wife died.
Uh-huh.
Um, a starvation, right? She starved herself to death because of her mental illness, and I was counterproductive was in my own. Um, so I needed to say goodbye, and I did. And that memory is 100% as real as the memory of finding her dead in our bed. Those
Absolutely.
they're not possible. Those two things could not possibly happen. But in my mind, and I know the one is a false memory, right? But it's every bit as emotionally real as the
Absolutely.
other one. So I actually managed to say goodbye to someone who's been dead at that point for 4 years.
Wow. With the group therapy, with when you
Yeah,
were able to
yeah,
have
with another person like holding the space for her, not pretending to be her,
yes.
right? Not
Yeah.
not not trying to act like her. It's not acting. He's just standing there, and there's a psychologist behind him telling him exactly what to say. That's it.
Wow. That's
And this is
interesting.
actually the guy holding space is a very good friend of mine. Now my wife was 5'11"
Okay.
and very blonde and blue. Like she was a Valkyrie, right? She was a Viking girl, right? Swiss and Norwegian,
Oh,
you know.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
So, but my buddy is 5'6" and 200 pounds
Oh,
with black hair, a heavy beard, and tats.
totally the opposite.
So at the same time, I'm actually looking down to make eye contact, but in my mind, I'm looking straight ahead because we looked eye to eye all the time. My first wife and I.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I know I'm talking to my boy
Him.
Ken,
Yeah.
but I'm also talking to my wife Dixie, and she's equally as real and in that and here and present as he is.
Yes.
So that was a one thing I did.
That's
Very,
interesting.
it's a very specialized technique, and there's only one small group of psychologists that I know that can do it. They're all here in Canada. They were up about BC.
Oh,
I've done that. I've done EMDR, which doesn't work for me. Eye movement desensitization,
okay.
something. EMD, or I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, it's a method of your eyes. Sometimes they use light, or they'll use like a wand, or just a hand, and your eyes go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, while
Mm-hmm.
thinking about this. And sometimes you hold electric stimulating handles, paddles,
Okay.
and they
Okay.
go bzz, 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 bzz,
Huh.
right. And what it's doing is it's activating both parts of your brain,
Okay.
right, both hemispheres,
Uh-huh.
while you sit and think about this traumatic memory. And by doing that, it helps you stay regulated and sit and think and feel all the way through it without going off the deep end.
Okay.
A lot of people find it very, very helpful. It's similar things. I don't know if you're familiar with the tapping technique,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
right, people they get really
Tapping.
excited, right? That's what you're doing, right?
Uh-huh. I know about
That's
that.
why walking is such a helpful meditation technique as well, because you're literally going tap, 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 tap,
Yeah.
tap, 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 tap.
Mm, it's like a natural somatic. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So your system's already working, and you're working your way through the emotional response is working itself out of your body through movement. So that frees your mind to think. And if you can guide your thoughts while the
Right?
emotions process, it's super, super helpful. I've done that. I've used I'm still using hypnotic tracts for to
Hypnotic
reach my subconscious.
tracks. So
Yeah, like
that's like hypnosis, but a certain term or certain degree of hypnosis.
no, I use
Oh,
as a website an app called Insight Timer.
okay.
It's free, and there are a number of tracks on there, recordings
Oh.
for various whatever you want to explore, right? And I'm using
Uh-huh.
some to help me reach a deeper level of rest,
Uh-huh.
right? Like yoga nidra or non NSDR, non sleep deep rest, which is yoga nidra. But
Okay.
when
Okay.
you get your body reach this state of deep, deep rest,
Mm-hmm.
it allows your conscious mind and your subconscious mind to actually begin to communicate. So you can use the technique to
So it's like in the
implant
frequencies in those sounds. Is that what it is? That's connecting you?
part of that, but you're also I'm listening to a hypnotist. I'm listening to a psychologist or
Oh.
somebody who's trained in hypnosis, and I'm hypnotizing myself to. I've got one for patients to
Huh.
become a better and more patient, well, person, but dad, parent.
Yeah.
One for
That's interesting.
losing anxiety. Right? It's hypnosis. That's what it is. I've used equine assisted therapy, working with horses, because horses are awesome,
Horses are awesome. They sure
right?
are.
And if you don't, like, the horse will reflect back to you whatever state you're going to them in. So if you go
Uh-huh.
in all worked up, the horse is going to get worked up. And a 2,000 pound animal all worked up isn't good for anybody. So you
Yeah.
learn, pay attention. Why is the horse doing this? Like, and it's not the people. This is the thing I learned. Like, my father is horrible. We always had horses, but he's cruel to them. Right? The horse
Uh-huh.
did it. Horse did it. Horse did it. No, no, you're a psychopath, and the horse is scared of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So horses
That's
are, and dogs too, like animals are an
animals
amazing
know.
emotional barometer, right? Like, why is
Yeah.
my dog doing this, right? So that's a good handy tool. But I've used psychedelics. I've used a number of psychedelics for therapeutic purposes. Um, Ketamine is incredibly effective, I found, for me.
Hmm.
MDMA as well, in a much more gentle fashion.
Hmm.
Ketamine isn't like uh, ketamine has three properties that are super useful for therapy. One is it's a mild anesthetic.
Okay.
Well, it depends on doses. It can be a major anesthetic, right? That's what it was before. It was a horse anesthetic. Speaking of horses, but in very small doses, depending on who, like, you can use it. What it does is you don't lose consciousness. You never go unconscious, but it stops your heart from racing. Your
Huh.
heart cannot race in the proper dose, which means you
Okay.
can't experience fear. If you cannot
Hmm.
experience fear, you
Then
can go visit trauma safely,
interesting. Huh.
right? Right? Because
That is
when
so
I,
interesting. I mean,
yeah,
this
like,
is a lot of good information for people out there who are trying to get into intergenerational trauma and trying to figure out their trauma that they have and the avenues that they can go into. And I love how
mm-hmm,
real you are and how authentic and raw you are because more people need to be this way so that you can, like, yeah, it didn't work for me, but I tried it. I understand it. I understand the concept of what's happening, but you know what? This worked better, or this worked better, or there's other ways. And the fact that you keep going, because all I hear is like more and more, and I'm just like, it's amazing to me how you never gave up on yourself. Like I know your story before, and if people would like to know your story before, please go check out our other video of our great conversations. However, this just shows how once you made that determination, you literally determined for yourself, I'm not going to give up. If I still got life today, then I still have a chance for today to continue on and moving forward. And I think that's something that people need to remember when it comes to healing this generational trauma that's inside of us that oozes out in ways that we don't even know until we take a moment of pause and we like, oh, that was from my grandfather, or oh, that was from my ancestors or something. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
When you start to just recognize that, it's like, oh, you have to be proud of yourself. And I hope you are proud of yourself of the progress that you made, but but you still know and you stay humble and realize there's so much more to go. You know what I mean? There's so much more to heal and to discover. You know what I mean? And I think I would love to know, if you don't mind sharing, what is one discovery that you found within yourself so far that you are okay with sharing?
I got nothing. I'll share anything. I have no secrets. I have no shame. I have no pride. I, right. I wrote a book about all my awfulness, right? Like, and I do videos all the time. I share my stuff all the time because once I reach that point where, you know what, I got to do this. I got to face everything I'm scared of. Because if I don't, I did it. See, I am proud of myself because I am doing it for me now. But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't start it for me. I didn't start this healing journey, and it's healings, right? It never stops. This healing journey
Mm-hmm.
for me,
Continuous. Mm-hmm.
right? Because I wasn't worth the effort at the time. I was worthless. I had
Mm-hmm.
no value. I wasn't healing for me. I needed to be a better husband for my current wife. I needed to be a
Mm-hmm.
better dad. I needed to be a dad at all. Period. I wasn't. I was a piece of crap. Well, that's not fair, but I was crazy, right?
Yeah.
I was unable to do better, and I wasn't doing good at all as a dad or a husband most of the time. And I needed to reduce the stigma of trauma and PTSD and healing and psycho and all the stuff for all of the officers and veterans that I'd worked with, served alongside, but more importantly, that I trained, taught the wrong shit to. Speaking of international trauma, right?
Yeah.
Taught these people that you're not allowed to be scared. You're not allowed to feel this. You're not allowed to have that. You can't be this. There's something wrong with you, right? I need to get rid of that before they turn to me.
Yeah.
So I started all this for everybody else. I
Yeah.
along the way, and this will tie into this in a second here. So I haven't lost track of the original question. I don't think, but
No,
um,
you're good.
um, it's only very, very recently using psychedelic and hypnosis, especially the hypnosis is really powerful, that I was able to really create a sense of value, a sense of love for myself, create not just love,
Mhm.
but unconditional love for myself. The same love I feel for my sons and my wife, no limits, no boundaries, no barriers. I was able to create the same feeling for myself. And when
Mhm.
I did that, um, going back in time, in my like
Yeah.
going back,
Reflection. Yeah.
um, I talked to younger versions of myself at major points in my life, major
That's
awful
beautiful.
points,
Uh-huh.
right? Explaining to 20-year-old or 7-year old or 2-year old, right? Like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
listen, you got some real hard stuff ahead of you, and you're gonna feel like you're unloved, and you're
Hmm.
gonna feel like you got a bad parent, and bad this. And here's the thing: we don't need any of them because we have the best dad in the world. We have a dad that loves us unconditionally. We have a dad that's always going to be there, never leave us.
Hmm.
Us. And so that helped reduce a lot of the negative narrative, the story in my head about how I had no value or worth,
Hmm.
um, which is the story I picked up because it was passed on to me. I spent my life carrying my great grandfather's pain.
Yeah. And you don't deserve to carry that pain. Nobody
Hell no.
deserves to carry that pain. So many people are here carrying the pain of their ancestors. So many of them. I mean, they they announce it in ways that people don't even recognize it anymore. So it's just like you have to start healing and start
And
that process. And I'm glad that we get
it's
to
so
have
hard.
this conversation because it is hard and we're all
So hard.
doing it. We're all doing it in the best way that we can in actuality, but it's just about recognizing it, owning it, implementing it, not just letting it go in one ear and out the other with no change and no reaction. Like, no, there always has to be some type of change. There always has to be something that marinates. Because if you have water that's boiling and that's about to fill over, you don't just raise up the heat. No, no, no. You lower it down and you get ready to start cooking. And what's cooking? You add the seasonings of your life. You add all those seasonings into the water so that when you're ready to add in the big juicy meats into that pot, you are ready to handle everything that comes out. Because at the end, when the stew is done and the soup is done or whatever, it's delicious and you're amazing from everything that you've been through. And I think that's the beauty with healing is that it allows you to flip the script. You know what I mean? And it allows you to receive it in such a way where it's like, okay, it's done. It's no longer going to go on to the next generation. They're going to have a new trauma. They're going to have new ways, but then it's not going to be from what the past is. They're not going to know or recognize those sorrows. They're going to recognize their new sorrows, their new version of what they experienced in life. And I think that's what we need to start remembering. And oh my goodness, I can't believe the time is already about to end. I know. Oh, it
Okay.
feels like we've only been talking for 5 minutes. So what is a lasting words that you can leave us off with?
Here's the thing about intergenerational trauma I learned, I realized. Okay, so first of all, it literally changes our DNA. Our body gets changed generation to generation as more trauma gets added. So we are more prone to trauma. We are more prone to nervous system disorders, ADHD, anxiety. We are more prone to it. We are programmed genetically. So that's
Yeah.
something we have to work on. Take care of ourselves, heal that sort of thing, take care of our physical selves. But here's the awfulness that we don't realize. When we are in the womb
Yeah.
of a stressed out mother,
Uh-huh.
we are absorbing more levels of stress related hormones such as cortisol than
Uh-huh.
we should be.
Yeah.
We should be absorbing more levels of the healthier ones, so dopamine, well,
Hmm.
healthier, but different ones, oxytocin, right? All these ones, but we don't. We are swimming in cortisol instead, and our body gets changed as well to seek cortisol rather than dopamine, oxytocin, and these positive feel good hormones. We are
Mm.
seeking out chaos to have stress. We find stress, we look for it, and we're more prone to be suffering from the stress because of the change in our DNA. Worse yet, worse Yet, because we are in the womb of a stressed out mother who is dealing with levels of depression and anxiety that are above what they should be, should, right?
Yeah.
We learn we learn in the womb and then later as we're raised that we are supposed to feel depressed and anxious all the time and seek cortisol. And so we do. We spend the rest of our lives fucking up our lives, seeking stress, making chaos, making our relationships into a living hell, fucking everything up, making ourselves awful and miserable because we think that's how we're supposed to feel, rather than we're supposed to feel periods of that, but also feel calm and joy and other
Yeah.
emotions. And then because we as a society are taught you're not allowed to feel any of those emotions or you're weak, we push
Yeah.
that shit down, right? As kids, we learn if I let my parents and adults know that I'm sad, or I'm scared, or I'm worried, they'll get mad at me because I can't feel that. But I do feel it. I can't stop feeling it. So, hey, there's something wrong with me. I'm inherently flawed. I'm a bad kid. I'm a bad person. So we have that story in our head for the rest of
Absolutely.
our lives. On top of all the rest of shit, we picked it right. And now, guess what? You got fucking work to do, sister.
Yes, we got real problems. That is crazy to think
Yeah,
about. But it's the
right?
real, it makes sense. When you broke it down in that way, I was playing it out. It makes sense. There's no, I'm sorry. Being a pregnant woman and experiencing that, it is hard not to feel stress. It's hard not to feel any, especially when you already have children while you're pregnant. The stress level is beyond what's already there naturally. So it's just like
And
we are,
factor in
it's a,
other things like you have an
everything.
abusive husband or an emotionally unavailable husband, or don't have a husband and you're raising these kids on your own, right? Or
Yeah,
you guys trying your best, you're doing good people, good humans, working hard, stuck in poverty for factors you can't control. Um, Maybe you got like
it's stressful.
there's so much more, right? It's and it all ties into this fucking stew of shit that if we're not aware of it,
Yeah,
if we don't learn how to deal with how we don't know how to sit in our emotion until it processes itself all the way through and releases itself because it wants to. But if we don't let it,
yeah,
it can't. And if we don't learn to catch the negative thought patterns in our heads, right, the lies we tell ourselves, right, if we don't
exactly.
recognize that's a lie, which is hard because how do you argue with your brain, right? You know, like,
Exactly.
and
Like, no,
then we
brain, you're not right. No, no, but I am right. I got facts. Look at these memories. No, but they're false memories. And that's what we don't realize is that we can create false memories. So it's chaotic because it's like it's life is a contradiction. Only the strong survive. So it's just like you really got to think about this in a way that'll like you can only do the best you can because you can get overwhelmed really fast. Every day you just got to try to work on something because all you have is today. All you
anybody
have
can
is
do.
today.
Here's the thing anybody can do, okay? It's basically meditation, okay?
Mhm.
But that makes it sound all fancy and shit, right? So anybody, anybody can do this. Okay. It's not easy. It's very simple. It's not easy, right? Everything important in life is simple, not easy.
Yeah.
Simple. I want you and all your listeners, I want you sometime today to find a quiet spot
Okay.
and just sit in silence and
Hmm.
allow any thoughts, any memories, any feelings to come. Don't try to push them away. Don't try and judge them as good or bad or whatever. Don't don't try to judge them or critique them. Whatever thoughts, whatever feelings, whatever memories come are all okay. They're supposed to be there for whatever reason. And if you try to fight them, they won't go. They can't leave. So all you're going to do is just sit with your eyes closed, set a timer for 3 minutes
Right.
and let whatever comes.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard the first time. And then I want you to take a break from it, however long a break you want to take, a couple of minutes, an hour, whatever,
Hmm.
and do it again for 3 minutes. Just sit and let whatever thoughts come, and let them go when they want to go. Don't push them away. Don't try and go, oh, I don't want it. Right? Just let them all come. There is no such thing as a bad thought here. Doesn't
No,
matter where your brain goes.
I think that's a great way to do one time in the morning, one time in the midday, and one time in the afternoon or evening, just so that you can recenter yourselves during those big impactful moments. Because oh, we do need that construction,
You do it three
that that
times.
that refocus
And if you
three
do it three
times.
times, the closer you do it together is better, right? But if you can do it
Mm-hmm.
3 times in a row, you will find after you finish the third time, you feel really good.
I could imagine just thinking about it is just it's like a refresher for your
Yeah.
body. It's like you know how when you're running or doing so many things and then it's like you're feeling parched. You're feeling parched like, oh, I need to drink something, so you stop and just drink something. I feel like that's a great way to remind ourselves like our body just needs to get hydrated just by pausing. Our mind and everything just pausing, let it collect itself. Because
What
how
you're
would you
learning,
yeah, go ahead.
what you're learning to do with that little exercise is you are teaching yourself to sit in
Hmm.
uncomfortable thoughts and
Hmm.
uncomfortable feelings you have never allowed yourself to sit through and therefore have never released. And that's why you're carrying your grandparents' pain
Ooh, that's a
because you
mic drop. The whole conversation just ended with that. Oh my goodness, that's true. That is so valid. Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys heard it first from Sheridan, who is still learning this on his process. You know what I mean? If someone's so willing to share in the middle of his learning and healing process, then you can start now if you haven't, or if you want to know more, if you or you're curious because you enjoyed what Sheridan had to say today, go check him out. I follow him on his socials. He has great content that shares to keep you thinking. Honestly, I have to listen. I have to stop what I'm doing just to listen to what he says sometimes because it's valid. You know what I mean? It is valid. So it's just like, go ahead, follow him, uh, check out his website so that you can keep on thinking. And if you haven't heard our first conversation, go check out the monsters in our head because he lays down some real mic drops for you so that you can keep on thinking. So with that being said,